Awesome.
Hello, Alex.
Hey,
Thank you for your
Tobias.
time. Thank you. Thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Nice to meet you. My pleasure. I was just checking as a little preparation because I couldn't find much about you, and what I could find about you is it uh, it asks more question than does it when it answers, and I really like that because I don't know anything about you, but I just watched your passive aggressive video, and I was
Yeah,
that's at home, So and I see your studio
yeah.
now, and anyway, it's a great song. I mean,
Thanks.
anyway, we're gonna talk about all this. First off, can you please introduce yourself to the audience and say who you are and why you maybe make the music you are making because it's very special, and and also where you come from, maybe music-wise, so that we know a little bit of your backstory. You learned the flute with 5 or something. Yeah, please introduce yourself. Thank you.
For sure. Yeah, my name is Alex. I go by Alyag. I'm based in Calgary, Canada, and I guess the music that I produce, I would describe it as electro-psy-funk, drum and bass, new disco trance metal. So it's a bit of a mouthful.
Exactly.
But yeah, it basically started off as myself trying to figure out how to combine some of my favorite musical elements because I'm first and foremost a metalhead. I've
Hmm.
always been a huge fan of especially Scandinavian melodic death metal, like Children of Bodom, Soilwork, In Flames, those kind of cats. Um, and so I've been playing guitar since I was about 13 years old, so however many years that is. And always played in a lot of bands and things like that. And just eventually, I ended up going to audio school and learning how to produce my own music because I never really wanted to pay a third party to kind of do everything. I was always kind of do it yourself from the
Hmm.
get go. So um, yeah, went there, learned how to do the things, and eventually, because in my old band, I was essentially the guy who wrote all the music as well. Like even though I encouraged the other guys to be like, hey, if you have any ideas, pitch in. It'd be awesome to kind of work on stuff. They're like, yeah, we'll just play whatever you want us to do. I'm like, okay. And that's kind of how I even got into drum sequencing or programming and all that stuff in the first place, is because I'd have to kind of map out what I wanted the drums essentially to sound like and give
Hmm.
them to the guys, and they would just kind of put their own twist on them and stuff. But then eventually, I kind of once that band dissolved, it was called Celestis. Uh, because I wrote all the music, like I essentially used those as the guinea pigs. Whenever I was, whatever project I was working on in audio school, I would just go back and keep reworking those songs over and over and over again until try to get them to the best version they could be. Um, and then, so I still have a bunch of those songs kind of on the back burner. Celestis is still going to be a thing I'll resurrect one day, but since then I've just been working with this kind of electronic moniker, Alyag, and um, there's a pretty big electronic music festival scene here in Canada,
Hmm.
especially in Western Canada, like some of the bigger ones like Shambhala, and there's like a ton of like other more local ones and stuff, or at least there were
Hmm.
up until recent events and stuff. And I'm sure a bunch of them will make a resurgence eventually. But yeah, I was just kind of as an aside, I was in that community, and I just kind of wanted to contribute to it. So I was like, well, how do I take my background as a metal artist and sort of put an electronic twist on it, because I've always liked electronic music as well. And just essentially this whole thing is just this ongoing experiment to try to fuse like dance music with melodic metal riffs and stuff. Um, so that's essentially kind of the background, but it's all done at home within the comforts of what I refer to as the blanket fort spaceship, which it really does look like the interior of an adult-sized blanket fort. And that was kind of the point of that recent video that you mentioned for Passive Aggressive Predator, which is the
Hmm.
single that just came out, I think a week or two ago. And that's probably the most ambitious video I've done. It was myself and my girlfriend Becca. Basically, I had this plan to do one continuous shot through, like as I kind of get out of bed in the morning kind of thing, and then pick up this little drum sequencer that was wirelessly connected to my computer because like the bedroom's directly
It's a Volca, huh? It's a Korg Volca. It looked like a Korg Volca.
uh It was the Roland MC 101.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
couldn't really make it out in the video, but yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of the downside, is because like she couldn't quite navigate the camera around the bed or whatever. Because of course, as she's trying to like handle the camera, she also had to like backwards.
Like, yeah, she has to give you space to
move through and stuff. It was interesting, but kind of the idea was to do one continuous shot as I go through walk through the house and just play a bunch of strategically placed instruments along the way. So it started with that little sequencer. I programmed it to send like MIDI messages wirelessly using a Roland MIDI adapter to my downstairs computer. So that would start the playback session, because there was like a bunch of audio stems that were playing back that were all in sync. Like there's a click track that I had in my wireless in-ears.
Just a little interruption. A video can be shot and audio can be added later. You made like a live render. I mean, it's cool. I just exactly. You did it enormously hard then, because this is really tough. Okay, but it's cool. I mean, that's even because I didn't know that. Now I know. And for me it was seamlessly. But of course, I thought you made the video and added the audio later.
Yeah.
That's how other people do it. Just a hint.
Yeah, that's how. Of course, like that's how you kind of make it sound nice and polished and stuff. But even like to make it extra difficult, I essentially I sampled the kick drum and the bass line from the Ableton session, imported them into that little groove box, and then had it start the Ableton session playback downstairs. It was all wirelessly connected through audio and MIDI and all that stuff. And then as I'm walking through the house, I'm like tweaking little effects and stuff. Eventually I get downstairs, put the thing down, play my keyboard synth, which is also wirelessly connected down the hall, and then pick up the groove box again, go back, set it down, and then eventually the playback from the groove box stops and the rest of the session takes over, and then I switch off between my MIDI controller and my guitar and stuff, and it's just
it's a Novation circuit or something, right?
The Launchpad.
The Launchpad, yeah.
Like the newer Launchpad X or whatever.
Looks cool. and now it makes sense, because I just, like I said, in the preparation, I just watched the video, and I wanted to see what I can find, and I could see that you got your guitar ready and stuff, and it looked like you're waiting for your turn to put it in, but for me it made no sense, because I thought the video was shot separately, and now it makes absolutely sense. You were really waiting for the cue to come.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing too is in the video when I pick up my guitar, because that was the fourth attempt to do it, which was pretty good, all things considered, right? But from the previous take, I couldn't remember which side of my desk I put my guitar pick onto, so I was kind of panicking. You can kind of see it in my face.
Yeah, for a short while, this was I thought like you were looking at the cue or something. Yeah, something went wrong, and
because I was kind of miffed at that point, because up until then the video was going well. I was like, hey, this is hopefully the final take. We don't have to run through this again or whatever. Don't mess it up. Where's the pick? God damn it, we're gonna have to do it all again or whatever. But then I found it and then did the thing. But it was kind of funny. But
quite ambitious, I have to say. I mean, for that, really, I mean, how you say, kudos or heads up to you. It's really, I mean, when it's extra. I mean, kind of you did it on like a video game, not on God mode or the extra violent mode or something. Extra hardcore mode, because this is, I never heard of somebody doing this so hard. Okay, no, but very well done.
I won't do anything like that again for at least a long time, because I was a pile of rental equipment and just even setting up all the wireless systems and everything else, and programming, running through it. But I don't know, it's fun to challenge oneself every once in a while and just kind of see what happens.
It turned out quite nicely. I mean, I will not over. I mean, I will link to it in the description of this video then, or the podcast, what it become later. But if I wouldn't have known all the effort behind it, I would have think a nice little home video, well done, and just. But so it's a live session basically.
Yeah, basically is, and yeah, and the other purpose for it was just because, like, I don't know, we got some pretty interesting decor here, and it was just kind of, I don't know, nice to show off all the veritable jungle that is our living room and stuff, and I don't know, it's kind of neat.
And you have a 2-story house, I know now, at least 2 stories.
Yeah. Yeah, just the two. It's even the house itself is very interesting. Like we're just renting it here, but our landlords are the ones that actually built the whole thing, and they're very crafty because, like, even those stairs, like the dark hardwood, I guess they actually made out of like recycled church pews.
Okay.
So like they found like
cool.
a local church that was getting
cool.
torn down. They're like, hey, free materials, kind of pilfered those. I think
really
like
like
the tile
that.
floor.
I really like that. You know, we use. I mean, we can talk about this as well because I'm also kind of, how you say this, not an ecologist, but I try to be economically as possible as using as little things as possible. So if I can reuse something, or then I will upcycle or something. I think this is even cooler because it has a history. It's not so boring. I'm just moved to a new place and it's really nice, but it's built how you say, very efficiently. It's really square, and before that I lived in a little attic thing, and it was a lot of beams and old stuff, and it really had some flair, and some attitude to it. And now this is good. This is kind of like compact and good and well spaced, and all the
it's very German, you could say. Just very efficient.
Yeah, very efficient. All the walls are straight, so you can put shelves on it, and nothing is wobbly or crumbled or something. But this makes it also kind of very boring. I mean, it's okay. Anyway, we talk about you, not about me. But I'm just wanted to say I'm with you that. Some reused material have more flair. It's just it has an history by itself, and anyway, I like that.
Especially like the sentimental value attached to something, right? It's like my dad always joked about how like I don't know, in a very silly example, there was we had 2 identical coffee makers, and one of them was basically a newer iteration of the old one. Like the old one was just like they were the same model, but the old one was just kind of like old and rickety and kind of beat up, and like some of the stuff didn't work on it or whatever. But when I moved out, I wanted to take that one specifically just because it kind of had more of a history. We had it for a long time, and like every time I would grind coffee in the morning, it would kind of remind me of like using it at our old place with my dad or whatever, right? So he was just like, oh, that's very Japanese of you to kind of want that, because I guess that's in the culturally there's in the Japanese culture, I guess, there's a certain value to taking old stuff that's kind of has scars and scratches and especially if it's a vase or something that's been shattered, and then they'd make an art of putting all the pieces back together and gluing them with gold paint or glue or whatever. I forgot what the practice is called, but there's some kind of magic to that, I guess. And,
I think also why you said it, but I like when I rarely buy stuff, but when I buy a jacket, I really have a tough time because I like old jackets, because we fit and they kind of get around you, and if a new one you kind of have to wear in first, you have to kind of get used to it and how to move and whatever. I mean. I like my old stuff, and I usually wear stuff until it breaks. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, but this is because of that, right on. No,
like Henry Cavill in The Witcher.
Pardon?
You're like Henry Cavill in The Witcher. I don't know if you know, or if you've even watched that show, but apparently he, when they were filming it, the costume, people kept complaining because Henry's muscles kept tearing through his armor, and they had to keep fixing it as they were filming the show and stuff. But so that's you with your t-shirt.
That's me, exactly. No, I got this t-shirt actually as a gift from my last job I worked in, and one of our customers gave this to me because he was so pleased with my work. Anyway, and he couldn't really measure. He was in UK and I was here in Germany, and he asked me for my size, and it fits. Just the arms are a little bit small. I mean, no, I mean, my arms are not small, but you got it. Sorry,
Yeah.
we're rambling here. Yeah, so we are not really complete yet with my first question because you haven't told us. I mean, you told us that you are, you had this metal band, Solstice or something. What was it?
Celestis. Yeah, it's
So,
like
Celestis.
Celestis.
But this doesn't answer your question where you come from. What did you learn music? I mean, you seem to play now every instrument. I take it, but what were your upbringing, and maybe also what inspired you to do music in the first place? And then we can maybe talk about. You already alluded a little bit to it. Why you're doing the music you're doing right now? Because I guess there's no one who does it, so you have to do it. But where are you coming from musically? Because you haven't fallen from the sky. Because there's some craftsmanship here.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess like I definitely recall when I was probably like 3 years old or something. My dad had this really cheap nylon string guitar. And I definitely, like, one of my earliest memories probably is just going and like constantly detuning the pegs on it, right? Like you do when you're a child and you have no idea what you're doing. So that was probably my first exposure to an instrument ever. But yeah, when I was 13, there was like a guitar class at our junior high school, and I was instantly drawn to that just because I really wanted to impress girls, I guess. Yeah,
the
become a
classic.
badass guitar player, do that. Yeah, so that was kind of the primary motivation. But the more I kind of tinkered with it, the more I fell in love with the instrument. It just kind of came to me naturally. Like before that, I was like I would draw like comics and stuff. I was always a visual artist, and I would do tinker in Photoshop and stuff. And I still do that on occasion. Like I make all my own artwork and stuff. Well, at least like the graphic design portion of it. These days I've been collaborating quite a bit with my girlfriend Becca, who draws a lot of the artwork for like anything of mine that has like all this cool line work and has all these like very organic elements. Like she really likes drawing like skulls and like things with mushrooms growing out of them and whatever. So anything like that is her work, and then I'll just take that and import it into Photoshop and kind of finalize it and stuff. But yeah, so art was always kind of my primary thing, and then as soon as I fell in love with the guitar, that's like all I wanted to do. And then eventually started recording my own music because I wanted to put my ideas down. Like, realistically, even though I've been playing for however many years, I know very, very few songs. Like I know guys that, you ask them to play anything, like you name a song and they're like, oh yeah, I know that. And then they'll just like,
you mean cover
break it down
songs?
to, like,
Yeah,
jukeboxes.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah. And there's a pretty big like cover band scene here in Calgary. And like some phenomenal players, but like they don't, like most of them don't really write original stuff. So like I've always found it kind of interesting how there's like a spectrum of musicians, right? You could have somebody that's like incredibly technical and can play their instrument very, very well, but then like they can't write anything original, versus like you have somebody who maybe has no technical like knowledge or training whatsoever, or music theory or whatever, but they just have really good ideas or really good ear for stuff or whatever. And I guess I'm somewhere in between, I think. But yeah, I just always wanted to do my own stuff. And then like my earliest recordings, I had like this horrible little, it was like a microphone for webcasting. So it had like a very flexible gooseneck on it, and it was like the capsule was like this big. And what I would do is I'd like wrap it around my leg and point it at the sound hole of my acoustic guitar, and then just like try to record that and tinker with software. And it sounded very, very bad, but I unfortunately don't have any of those early recordings anymore. That hard drive literally melted, but still have a bunch of other older stuff. And it's kind of interesting to go back every once in a while, listen to it just to compare. But yeah, and then play the instruments and then start recording, get into like software and sequencing and mess around with electronic instruments. And the electronic stuff took pause for a number of years because I was so focused on all the metal and rock stuff. And then now I guess I've come full circle because I think it was in 2016 I was at that Shambhala music festival, and I was just kind of wandering around between stages, just listening to all the stuff. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to take a serious crack at trying to produce electronic music, because like as a producer, electronic stuff I think is the most intimidating for a lot of people, just because like if you're a recording engineer, like sure there's no right or wrong way to like mic up an instrument or record it or mix it or whatever. It's just like, you know what, if it sounds good, it is good. Like just make it sound good kind of thing. Which is the really annoying thing about like going to audio school, because I went in there thinking like, okay, there's got to be just one way, correct way to record drums or something like that. And they're like, no, anything goes. Just do whatever, experiment.
Exactly.
Right?
It's kind of you put your own taint on it, or your own
Yeah.
spin.
Yeah, and it's both like liberating, but also like very intimidating at the same time, because you're like, crap, I have to put in the time and experiment and do this trial and error stuff, right? There's no formula to it, but yeah. So with like electronic stuff, it goes a little further, because you know, as a guitar player, you don't build the guitar you play from scratch. You just pick it up, tune it, and then off you go. Sure, you dial in your tone and stuff, but then that's kind of it. Versus like with electronic, there's a lot of sound design stuff. You're creating sounds from scratch, like all the synthesizer like patches and whatever that you can make and whatever. And you know, sometimes you listen to electronic music and you go, how the hell did they make that sound, right? So yeah, eventually I decided, you know, I'm going to take the plunge and try to figure it out or whatever. And I was watching a bunch of tutorials from this Australian glitch op producer named Mr. Bill, who he had a series of online tutorials called The Art of Mr. Bill, where he actually just like, they're like 12-hour long series that he would record in chunks. And like this one, it started out with like, it's just him staring at a blank slate in Ableton, and he's like, hey everyone, it's Mr. Bill here. It's some stupid hour in the morning. I haven't slept for 3 days, but I have like mad writer's block, but I really want to make some tunes. So I'm just going to load up a synth, make some weird bleep blop noises, and just see what happens or whatever. And then so he starts experimenting, and then like 12 hours later, he's got a finished mixed and mastered track. And that was my first introduction to Ableton, which is like probably the best in my experience for like sound design and electronic production, just because it's very easy to route stuff in the program and just very easy to like mangle sounds and chop them up and do
also
whatever
for live performances. I heard, I haven't used Ableton, I have to say, but I heard it's easy to kind of you know, with your MIDI thing, you can kind of you know, hit things and kind of start things, and they blend in together quite well. I mean, it's made for live performances.
Yeah, and it's also like, it's very resource efficient and stuff. So even if you have a bunch of virtual instruments loaded and stuff, it's very good at allocating the system resources and the processing. So yeah, because it's tailored for live performance. Like the whole idea is to make sure that your stuff doesn't crash in the middle of it, right? So it's really good for that. But yeah, kind of coming from a background of like Cubase and Pro Tools and all that stuff, and going into Ableton, it's a kind of a different workflow. But then once I got into it, I was like, I can't stop, and I can't go back to the other stuff. But yeah, and really I've just been experimenting ever since then, just going deeper and deeper into it and learning more about synthesizers and all that crazy stuff. But yeah, I guess here I am today, just mangling metal riffs and electronic dance beats in a way that seems to hopefully make sense. You know, it's kind of hard to like place it anywhere. Like if you're trying to submit your music to like blogs for review or whatever, and you're like, oh, I guess this has elements of like house music in it, or it's got elements of like drum and bass. But then of course there's a lot of scenes that are like very passionate about that one specific genre, and as soon as you like advertise it as that thing, they're like, well, that's not real, like jungle or whatever.
I hate this. You know, I'm really with you. For me, music is very liberating. You know, there is no right or wrong. There is just something you like or you don't like, and I really hate to be so. How you say? Is it pigeonholed the right word? Or you know, with blinders that you just only. I know this, of course, too. You know, this is no true death metal because you don't do this and blah, blah, blah. And what the beep? You know, I've tried to keep it PG, but this is really stupid. I mean, you know, you can run in every direction basically. You know, and how if you know a little bit about metal. and the history of metal, where it comes from. If we would have played, you know, the blues stuff, the first ones have played, then we would have, you know, we would still play blues, but we you know, and now you see how many, you know, there's grindcore, crustcore, this stuff.
Yeah, metal in particular there's so many subgenres of that too, right?
And so for me, it's kind of, I mean, I know it, of course, but how can we be so kind of stupid or so how you say, so conservative? I don't know the real word for it, but how can we not see that there is so much more out there, you know? And for me, I really like your stuff, you know. I'm kind of a fanboy here, because this is always what I wanted to hear, to have this, you know, I grew up with Ministry, Psalm 69. This was like, oh, we have guitars and electronics. This is possible. Yeah. I didn't know, you know, and this was so, man, yeah, you can fuse this. And here in my little neck of the woods, it was impossible to get people together, you know, to have, I could, you know, I'm a bass player by trade, so I played in a lot of bands, and it's no problem to find a band, but can we add some electronics? You mean like just some piano and stuff? Yes, we can, but no, I mean like really electronic and stuff. And no, this is not true rock and roll. This is not true hard rock. This is not true metal. And I hate this.
Yeah, you're like, get with the times, man.
Yeah,
there's a lot of technology out there.
and also, okay, I don't think that you are kind of, I mean, I really think you're doing what you want to do, but even if you think a little bit out of the box from a marketing standpoint, if you do this right, you kind of have a much larger audience, because you have the metalheads and you have the synth pop guys and you have the dance floor maniacs or whatever you call them. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't think this is your goal to kind of like, you know, have all these, but you might. And so anyway, I like you. I think it's very liberating to just do what you like, and infuse things. And you know, I grew up in the 80s, and you know, for me, I like pop music and stuff, and so I like pop. But then I also like heavy guitars, and why not fuse them? And sometimes I'm listening to some death metal bands, and then oh man, this is like a pop riff. We just play it really hard and really fast. That's all, you know, just and of course we, but yeah, if you would sing normally to it, it would be, you could sing a pop song there. Anyway, this is, you know, I think I'm preaching to the choir here, because we are very similar here. That's kind of so idiotic to restrict yourself in music, because there is no restriction in music. I mean, either you like it or you don't like it. Yeah, exactly. This is so, that's a liberating thing. So thank you. Thank you for doing the music you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's funny actually, because like throughout doing this whole like, because I've really focused on kind of marketing over the last year and actually trying to build an online fan base, and you know, like it's been really cool, especially with, you know, people such as yourself kind of reaching out and be like, hey, let's have a talk about this and stuff. But it's been really funny, because I've gotten a series of comments from people just on my various videos being like, bro, I'm a metalhead. All my girlfriend listens to is electronic music, and I hate her music, and she can't stand mine. But it's like, now we can actually listen to the same thing in the car together. Thank you. Like, that's awesome. I'm like, you know, a musical couples therapist kind of thing, in a way.
I just got your Spotify up, and I mean, you're doing quite well. You have 10,000 almost 10,500 monthly listeners. So you know, you're getting somewhere.
Okay.
I mean, you're doing okay. It's good. So I mean, this is almost not niche anymore. You know, I mean, you are more than just. Maybe this brings me to another question. Do you have a label, or do you have some, because you just said you focused on promotion. So how do you promote yourself, or do you have a label or somebody in the background who helps you with the promotion?
No, it's
Okay.
just another hat that I wear.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just another kind of skill set that I've been learning over the last year, I guess. But it's interesting, I guess, because as a creative or as a musician or whatever, typically you're like, I just want to make art, I want to do my thing, and I like the marketing. It's almost like kind of looked down upon. You're like, I
Hmm.
know there's
Hmm.
people for that, but it just seems kind of sleazy to try to sell yourself. Like a lot of creatives are actually really uncomfortable with that. I mean, I guess myself included a little while back. But the more I got into it, the more I realized that it's like, oh, it's another avenue to be creative because sure, like, yeah, my main focus is like my music and the occasional bit of graphic design. But, you know, as you get into it and you start thinking about like, okay, so writing copy, like creative headlines that might be kind of catchy, or like even just like a video that you put together, like how do I make this seem like if somebody's scrolling on Facebook or whatever, how do I make it so that they actually pause and go, that's kind of cool,
Hmm.
and like the more you get into it, then the more, yeah, the more that creative ball starts rolling, I guess, which is kind of cool. But I mean, generally, it's just been kind of a combination of just making videos that you use them as ads, but you don't make them look like ads, right?
Hmm.
Because if you have something that's incredibly polished and seems like it's really well produced, generally people like in the back of our heads, we tend to kind of immediately like dismiss it because we're like, oh, just another ad, whatever, just skip and whatever.
Hmm.
But if it looks like it's a guy who's just like playing instruments in his living room and you find the tunes are, oh, that's kind of interesting, oh, he's flipping between all these different instruments and doing it all himself, like as a one man electro instrumental laptop band kind of thing. They're a little more likely to take pause, and that was kind of a big part of the reason for that passive aggressive predator video,
Hmm.
is to be like, oh, it's just a guy in his house, he's getting out of bed now, he's playing stuff. you know
Hmm.
um but yeah, it's all just me doing it, and any sort of spare income that I have, I just dump right into like advertising, and just like I sink it all right back into the whole
Hmm.
craft and whatever,
Hmm.
and like eventually it'll hopefully start to pay for itself, but it's definitely a slow uphill climb. But again, I haven't really been at it for very long. Like I've been making music for a long time, but like marketing, I've only really taken to in the last year. But the guys that I do have to shout out would be a company called Indapreneur.
Hmm.
They have a bunch of online trainings on this stuff, and like I just saw one of their ads one time, and they have like really really good trainings about like just harnessing the Facebook ads platform, or like how the whole Spotify thing works, or like, and they're not like hacks. They're not like, oh, pay us $50 and we'll pitch you
Hmm.
to a
Hmm.
thousand whatever playlisters or whatever, like, which is usually a scam. They actually kind of teach you like how to like essentially treat your music career as like an actual entrepreneurship kind of thing, like as a business essentially.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, been learning a ton from those cats and stuff. So and then implementing it and just going my own way with it,
Hmm.
which has been really cool. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and
it's all.
you seem to be doing quite well. You know, I'm kind of I hate this to be an influencer, because I would look down on an influencer, kind of, because I think of a little fitness model and like, oh, I'm drinking this and then I get slim and da 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 da,
Yeah.
all this stuff. But in a way I am, and I'm also learning by doing, and I don't think it's a bad thing, because like you, I do what I like to do. Nobody pays me to talk with you, and I'm looking for the people I want to talk to, and I reach out to them, and like we did, because I liked your music. So, oh man, this looks interesting, and so and this is kind of what you also showed in your video. This is the authenticity. No, authenticity. No, how do you say this word?
Authenticity.
Authenticity.
Yeah.
Authenticity. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sometimes my German comes a little bit too much through. Sorry for that. Yeah. So yeah, some words are a little bit tougher than others.
Yeah. No worries.
But yeah, I guess we understand. Anyway, so my what I want to say is like if you because it was kind of exactly the same. I hate to do that, and I hate to advertise, and I like, because I always thought, if you make good music or if you make interesting stuff, people will find it. But it's not the case so much, Yeah, you need to push it a little
breaking
bit.
through the noise, right? Because there's so much content out there, right? And you're like, how
Exactly.
do I squeeze myself into that little niche or whatever, right? But yeah, and even actually the really cool thing about the Spotify thing too is I've actually found a bunch of really cool artists that, like, I just discovered a bunch of dope new music just because, like, once Spotify has enough data about your listeners, it'll start to kind of like lump your stuff in with like other artists that might sound alike, or like listeners that like your stuff also might like this stuff or whatever. So it's been kind of neat discovering a sort of niche of other artists that are like, they're not doing quite the same thing that I'm doing, but there's still elements of like fusion of metal and rock and like all this electronic stuff.
You should check the video I did yesterday with the day before. We're in lockdown right now, so I have a lot of time today to do videos. I will send you a link to it. Alex Popravko. He's from the Ukraine, but he's living in Germany right now, and he does the music, kind of the same stuff.
And he makes I've seen his name actually pop up in my list. I'm pretty sure.
I was a little bit confused for a little bit because I put you both in my calendar, and I was like, Alex and another Alex. Oh, did I do it twice? Because sometimes I get confused, and you're in a different time zone, so I always check that I don't get things wrong. But I had two Alexes, so I will send you a link. He's a really cool guy, and he makes kind of the same music, a little bit more. And I met another one in Switzerland. I mean, like talked like this. Knife, and he's from UK, London, but he lives in Switzerland right now. So there is a group, and I think also, like you just said, I think I found them all through Spotify, because Spotify knows now slowly, as creepy as it is, they know what I like and what I put in my playlist, and so I get this offered, and because I think I found you also through Spotify. I didn't saw you anywhere else, and you were kind of, this fits in yours, and or my weekly mix or something. I'm going through, and this sounds good, and then I check it out, and then okay, not much there, but I mean, content-wise, because it was, like you said at the beginning, this was like a mouthful. I was like, okay, this guy, I don't know. But it's tough to describe when you do something new. I mean, maybe in a few years or so, somebody will say this is X. This is kind of
like a name for it. That'll kind of describe everything all at once. Hey, who knows?
I grew up also with Fate No More, so this was crossover. So this would fit perfectly as well, but crossover is now kind of taken to meaning something else. But it would be the perfect genre bending, whatever, Anyway, so you're doing quite well, and that's really nice. And please send me your music, because I have a weekly radio show where I play music I like, and I like yours, so I would really like to play it. And I can also, now we're into cross promotion, because I can then promote our video, and there's a video I'm just playing, and if you want to know more about Alex, check it out. So that's marketing 101.
Okay. I mean, hey, if there's like a specific sort of mood you're going for one day or whatever, and you let me know, because then I can obviously have like a pretty broad, eclectic range of stuff. So if you want something more slow and more ambient, or something just like slow and heavy, or really fast, or whatever.
My show is also eclectic. I really like this word, very eclectic, because I have a wide range of music I like, and I see from the other guys on my radio station, they have very narrow genres, and my show is more like a mixed bag. So it's everything from alternative rock to over dark pop and dark wave and gothic and industrial metal. So I can. My thing is, the entrance point is, I like it. I like the music. So I have played blues. I have also fringes. I even played some rap stuff. It's very rarely that I like some of this, but some is good, and then I play it, and I don't know if you know SubmitHub. I'm kind of there as a radio station. I will send you a link because this is something for you for self-marketing. Okay, see, you learned something also.
Yeah, so we'll check it out. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, and you can even pitch stuff there for free. It takes a little bit longer, but if you pay like 50 cents per thing you send, then you can do it a little bit. Anyway, we can, or if you want, we can talk about this. But we have more interesting things to talk about with you.
Anyway, I guess that's kind of the neat thing about. Yeah, like doing your own radio show, right? Is like you're not limited by like record executives or someone like telling you like what you should play or whatever. You're like, nah, this is what I like. If you like it as well, cool. If not, man, whatever. Find a different channel. But
yeah, and I really cool. Like that to to like I get to know you now, and as you can imagine, I'm a little bit more experienced now as a radio DJ, so I get a lot of can you play this and that, and I constantly find new music, and I just I have to say yes or no, and sometimes it's a little bit mean, because I'm kind of a gatekeeper of it, and this is what I meant with, but yeah, I mean, I have to draw a line, because when we come to the other thing, as you can imagine, today, where everything is so liberal and everyone can become his own artist or, produce his stuff at home on his cell phone or whatever, you get a lot of crap. So I'm also, this sometimes kind of, man, you have to, like, you want to put a sewage system before that, that you can filter this out and stuff. Yeah, so some people really, anyway. So it's not always easy to stay afloat in this avalanche of stuff you get. But anyway, I have only one hour per week, so I'll need to be a little bit strict with what I play. But anyway, like I said, I play a lot of a wide range, and I like it. I like different moods, because this is how I like to listen to music. If I always going back to this other thing, I like death metal, but I cannot hear death metal hours in a row, because then I get kind of bored, because it's aggressive and hard and whatever, and but one or two songs fine, but then I wanted to have something soft or some poppy and whatever to mix it up, because otherwise my head gets dull. I like to to kind of be engaged, and when I like punk music, but I really hate punk music because most of the punks I know, they play only 180 miles per hour music, straightforward, and when it's, I like one song, I like two songs and three songs, okay, and then now slow down a little bit, and kind of, because when it hits better, when you create a song, you take out a little bit the speed, and then you hit harder, or you take some instruments out.
The contrast between the elements,
just
so it's kind of like a more dynamic listening journey, right?
Exactly. Make it dynamic, and so sometimes anyway, when I'm really I get bored fast, if you don't if you cannot play see, maybe let's stop with talking about me, talking about you. So how long do you have your project Alyag? Is it right? Alyag, or how you say Alyag?
Yeah, Alyag. Yeah.
Alyag. How long are you producing music with this project already?
I'd say that like the first track I made with that name would have been back in 2005, but I wouldn't really consider that to be like an official anything, right? I was just like, call it that, leave it alone. But I guess more the serious sort of incarnation of it would have been back in 2016, when I really started kind of going heavy with the electronic production stuff.
Okay. Okay, because my question is, or the question I really have is, so have you played live? Have you done some live shows with it as a solo producer? Okay, so you did.
I've done a bunch. So like I've done a bunch of my own solo set stuff, and I'll also sometimes play with my friends who are DJs, and they're like very much immersed in the festival scene and all that. They're called Kali Yuga and the Genesis Project, And basically how that all started was like back in 2015, because they would regularly DJ like a bunch of these big festivals and stuff. And then they were like, hey, it'd be kind of cool to like, because they're also metalheads as well. Like it'd be kind of cool to have like a live guitar play over top of a DJ set kind of thing. So we kind of worked out some ideas. I played a couple licks and stuff, and then of course the ravers go bonkers when they see like a live instrument, especially if it's somebody shredding guitar solos, right? Because then they're so used to like a DJ on stage, just like the typical like lap face and like the finger points and the knob twists and everything else. And then all of a sudden there's like a big pointy like Alexi Laiho guitar on stage, like a solo being ripped, and they just kind of lose their minds, which is kind of cool. So that was, I guess, the other thing that kind of gave me an idea to start pursuing this whole thing, is like, oh, okay, so make rave music, but with like guitar solos over top. So occasionally, like, we'll actually play festivals now, and they'll now that I have my own music to kind of contribute to the live set, they'll like mix in my stuff with just the rest of their set. Like they don't usually write their own stuff; they just kind of play. Like they DJ other people's music, but they're how
we mix it a little bit. We mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, like their signature sound essentially comes from, like, even though it's other people's music, but how they curate that atmosphere and how they build their set. There's something kind of very magical to it, and it's like very unique to them. And so, yeah, with kind of me in the mix, it kind of creates for a bit of an interesting experience. For the listeners, I guess, at the festival, and just something a little different, I guess, outside of the DJ thing. But yeah, so I would do stuff with them, and then I would also do a bunch of my own stuff where it's just me with like my whole live rig. And on my YouTube channel, I actually have like a couple of videos where like I have a full hour-long live set, which the most recent one was from June. It was just done at like I just filmed it in the basement that I lived at before we lived here. And it was just, kind of a showcase essentially of what my live set would look like. And it was just me flipping between the guitar and like in a synthesizer and my MIDI controller and all that stuff. Okay, and then I also, it's just called Live at the Blanket Fort Spaceship. And I'm aiming to go and revise that as well. Like I want to make a couple other live sets and just like either try to live stream them if my computer can handle it without exploding, or just film them and sort of premiere them on YouTube or whatever. Which in and of itself is kind of cool, because then you can actually hang out and like chat with people while it's playing back, right? Whereas you don't have that luxury if you're actually performing the parts, right? But yeah, so live sets have definitely been a thing. It's still in the grand scheme of things, it's still kind of a fledgling project. So like even before the COVID thing happened, like I had the luxury of playing at a bunch of local festivals and then a couple local clubs as well. But then over this past year, I kind of stopped focusing on that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to get more into the marketing side of things and then get back to the live stuff later once I've sort of built up a bigger online presence. And then COVID happened. So I'm like, ooh, even less reason to leave the house. Great. So I've definitely maximized the time. Just kind of holed up at home, just like working on all this stuff. But live things are definitely a thing. And that's when I started this whole project. That was kind of my mission, essentially, was to like, how do I take all this stuff to the stage and do it all myself? It would be really cool to do this stuff eventually with an actual band. There's definitely lots of room for that. Like if you look at even like how guys like Pendulum have done it before, even when they had like In Flames join them for like the one track or whatever, that was really cool. But I think there's definitely a lot of potential for it. But for the time being, because I can't afford to pay other band members, I'm like, let's do this all myself. And I constantly say that the nice thing about having your laptop as your bass player is that you don't have to constantly argue over who bought the last case of beer at the jam, and you don't have to help haul its stupid Ampeg fridge-sized cabinet up and down the stairs.
But one issue with this, I mean, I understand it. You're free. You can do, your vision counts. But how do you, sometimes it's not good to just swim in your own sea of things, So how do you? Okay, I have actually a few questions. How do you decide when you finish a track, because usually a track is always a work in progress. It's never done.
There's
It's
always more
never
stuff you
really.
can add to it.
Yeah, it's only a snapshot. Snapshot. Yeah, that's right. Snapshot of a moment. You kind of say you freeze it in time, and this is it. So
Yeah.
how do you get to this point? And also, how do you? Yeah, I mean, no. Let's talk about this, because this is the point where how do you realize it's good enough? Do you send it to some friends, or do you get, I guess you from your girlfriend you get feedback and stuff. So, sometimes a lot of artists have a little bit self-doubt. When do you kind of are manned up enough to say, okay, this is how it should sound?
Mm-hmm. I think it's. Yeah, it's such a difficult question for, like, that's like the perpetual struggle of the creative, right? You're like, as you just described it, how do you know when it's done or whatever? And especially where, like, with the luxury that a lot of us have, where we can just start ideas at home, and we have all this technology at our fingertips. It's really easy to get into it and stuff. So many people struggle with like finishing ideas, right? Because they're like, I have like a million songs that I started, but none of them are finished or whatever. That's something I struggled with as well for a long time. Even going back to that, like, to the era of me being in audio school and constantly like improving on those like old Celestis tracks. Eventually, because I basically spent 2 years working on the same songs, and sure, I was learning all this technical stuff in school, but eventually I kind of hit a point where I'm like, I haven't written anything new in years. Like, I'm still doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And it gets incrementally better every time, but like, I'm basically like, I'm treading mud. Like, I'm
Exactly.
not
That's
moving
what I
forward
meant.
at all.
Kind of in your own bubble, and nothing comes in, nothing goes out. You're kind of just in your own little sphere.
Yeah,
and
you're spinning tires.
Yeah, exactly. It's
so eventually I kind of had to like force myself to just draw the line and be like, okay, no, I'm doing this one more time, one more once over, and then that's it. It's finished. I'm not touching it again. I'm just going to release it as is, because I kind of just made myself realize that no matter how stoked I am on the thing that I'm working on today, 5 years from now, if I'm still working on it, that's all it's going to be. But if I've already moved on past it, I'll probably have written way more better things by that point, and I could look back on it 5 years from now and go, oh, that was cool, but it's nowhere near as good as anything I've done like today. Right.
And you can also remaster it. You can kind of what's a lot of bands doing. Like their early hits, and then they remaster it, the 2012 version or whatever of the song. So I mean, you freeze it in time, but it doesn't need. I mean, you can still take the best parts of it and make new out of it. So yeah.
Yeah, totally. And that's kind of the other allure of it. But since then I've just I think over the last 4 years, I forced myself that like whenever I start an idea, I'm not allowed to start working on anything else until I finish it. I'm going to see it through to completion. And usually, like, once I start a track, like, it'll be like with work schedules and my time off and whatever. Usually, it's within like, I want to say 4 to 5 weeks. I can usually finish like a project. And that's like, chipping away at it like whenever I have time during the week and stuff. But I guess when I know that it's done is probably when, like, as you said, there's always more elements you can add to it. There's always more you can do to it. It's a perpetual work in progress. But at a certain point, I'm like, I just kind of decide, like, you know what, this has enough layers. It sounds pretty full. If I add any more to it, there might be a point of diminishing returns.
Exactly.
Or if I just feel like
overdo it.
Yeah, like where you're just focusing on the same like 4-bar loop over and over and over again. If you're like that honed in on it, like, you should probably just leave it alone. Or I will just leave it alone for like a week or two and then come back to it. And if an idea comes to me, cool. Or if just listening to it with fresh ears kind of dictates that, oh, this is probably good as is, then I'll master it and then just get it done. But the other, I guess, the flip side of all that is the benefit of being an electronic kind of artist and designing the live sets as I do. Like, I kind of picked up a lot of tips on this from Callie and Tanner, like the other, like Callie Yuga and the Genesis Project, just kind of watching how they mix their DJ sets. Obviously, they don't play full tracks, right? They just take the highlights, like the juiciest part of every track, and splice them together. And that's kind of what I do with my live sets as well. Is I'll take basically the best parts of each thing, and I'll also like sometimes write custom transitions because they're already pretty genre, like pretty eclectic and
fluent.
Yeah,
genre
and
fluent.
so like they're pretty different from one track to the other, and even within one 6-minute long track, it usually jumps between all this different stuff. So I'm like, okay, so how do I make that fit on a grander scale within like the context of an hour-long set? And sometimes, to get from this key and this tempo to this key and this tempo, you kind of have to write a custom section just to make, and that becomes kind of cool because it's like you can only hear it within the context of that live set. It's not a track of itself that's released anywhere else. Sometimes it can become a track of its own accord. Like, I've used a bunch of transitions over and over again in a live context. And then eventually I'm like, oh, I think I can actually take this idea and run with it, and it'll go a little further. And then I make a standalone track from it. So like that gives them those ideas a chance to evolve and stuff. But the other benefit of doing it that way is that I can essentially go back and remix my own stuff. So even though it's a completed studio track, I can take some elements of it and remix it in a new light, a new interesting context, without doing it all from scratch, like making it this whole big project. It's just kind of like a more quick and dirty sort of remix or whatever, and makes it a little more interesting. And if there are any other things I want to add to it, then I can within a live context. And then if that idea really goes somewhere, then I can always kind of re-release it as like, hey, this is an alternate version of this track or whatever. Or like maybe it's a different tempo, maybe it's a slow, like a halftime thing, or who knows. So it kind of feeds into that desire to keep like rehashing a thing without actually
okay, I see. So you're kind of you're rehashing it while you're doing your live set basically, and trying out new things on the fly while you're doing it. I see. No, it's not a bad idea. So how do you create? I mean, what I'm asking here is more like technical, because I think it's very intriguing, and maybe I can learn something from you here. Because how do you build your live set? Is it like you make an hour and it's all spliced together, and then you? I mean, I'm oversimplifying. You hit play, and then things go together, and like this, or how do you? Have you single tracks where you stop and then say, hello guys, and now I'm playing this thing, and hello Calgary, hands up for Alyag. Sorry, your name doesn't roll.
You got a really good radio DJ voice.
Thank you very much. I have more. I have good. Thank you. Tonight with Alex from Alyag. Now I need to do some special effects or something, and then do.
Or just the air horn.
Exactly. Like in the carousel, or how you say the merry-go-round kind of things. I don't know if you have the country fairs and stuff where we have these little things, and then
the Ferris wheels and stuff. I like it.
Thank you. How so you have it all stringed together, the live set then?
So I actually just because people were asking about it, and I just made a video for it, and it's on my YouTube channel now. I forgot the exact title of it, but it's pretty easy to find. Basically I kind of go through, break down the full process and actually show the Ableton session and everything else. But
I will check it because
what I essentially do is, if I can, I guess, quickly summarize it. Basically I create a blank Ableton session, and every time I finish a track, I'll export all of the audio stems. So usually here's the drum bus, and here's the bass, and here's a bunch of synths and effects and everything else. And then I'll lay them out on one massive timeline that's an hour long or whatever, and I have all the tempo information there and whatever. I'll usually start thinking in the back of my head, okay, so this song is in this key and this tempo, this song is in this key and this tempo. I think they could flow together, and then sometimes I'll do the custom transition thing or whatever. But basically I arrange the stems on one massive timeline in a way that makes sense, add in any custom bits if I have to, and then I'll cut out the chunks of stems that I think I can perform live. So obviously the guitar solos or whatever, I'll still leave in background harmonies and stuff to make it sound nice and full. A lot of rhythm guitar tracks I'll still leave in because I like that wall of guitars kind of sound, right? And so I'll just like layer my live guitar over top of the studio tracks in that instance. Any synth parts, I'll either layer new synth parts on top of what's already playing if it fits, or I'll cut out the originals and then just like play them using a different instrument or whatever, like in case like the synthesizer I'm using doesn't sound exactly like the software that I was using or whatever, but I'll still play the same notes, just a different sound. It's interesting because I just got like I sold off all my other synth stuff and I just got this Machine Plus, which is a standalone thing that has its own audio engine, and it does all the drum sampling and synth stuff and everything else. And like
I checked out the Archive Force. I think it's kind of similar tool, and I really liked it, but it was too expensive for me. So yeah. Anyway, and so sorry. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, so like I basically just have to figure out how to use this thing in my live set sort of context or whatever. It'll open up a lot of avenues, but it's like I basically have to revamp everything that I've done up to this point and start using this thing with it. In theory, I could probably even use this thing completely without a laptop, but I think I just have more flexibility with Ableton, which especially in the way that I can automate my input channels. So that's kind of the other aspect of it, is once I have my entire session laid out, I've cut out all the chunks that I can perform and figured out all the parts that I can and can't do. I'll basically just master that one massive stem and then export it into a new Ableton session and then start working on my input channels. So for the synth and then the MIDI controller, as the timeline scrolls along, I have the ability in Ableton to actually specify what instrument's playing. So I don't even have to switch anything. I can just walk up to the pad and start playing it. If I wanted to, I could even have Ableton send MIDI messages to my Helix, which is my guitar processor, and then have it change the patches on the fly. But it kind of gives me less stuff to do in that case. And by that point, I've already done so much programming. I just don't want to do more. So I'm like, it's pretty easy enough to just stomp on the different patches and change the things. But then using Ableton, I can automate things like effects or volumes. Like, so say if there's like a section with a guitar solo, I can boost that part and then like duck it out when it's back to the rhythm stuff. Things like filter sweeps or even just mutes, because when you're like rapidly changing between the guitar and these controllers, like sometimes your strings will ring out and you don't want that. So I'm able to just mute that part of it, and so it just kind of cleans the whole thing up, right?
Perfect.
And then just put like a limiter right on the end of it, so nothing like overloads the output, and like it's very controlled.
I see you put a lot of thought into it. But the only thing what goes into my head is, I mean, it makes absolutely sense, and it's cool, and I'm pretty sure it works very well. What I'm just thinking is more from a normal live band perspective. It's kind of like you usually pause when you finished a song and then thank you, and and how do you do that? You can stop it and then you can go on, or because it's all blending together basically. It's a 1 hour.
Well, even there, like
thing.
I would have sections that I like. This isn't in the most recent live set, but like whenever I'd perform live, I'd usually have a microphone and stuff, and I would have a bit of banter in between tracks. Or if there's a section where like, one song is fading out and the other was coming in, I would have like a little bit where I would just like crack some stupid comment or something like, this song is about my best friend making fun of me.
20 seconds to say something or something like this. Okay.
Yeah, don't miss the cue. So there's it's kind of pre-orchestrated in that way. The one thing I am thinking of doing though is like, because with Ableton using the Launchpad, you can actually like just trigger scenes, right? Like, so you could totally like, instead of having one giant timeline, I'm thinking of breaking it up into like say 3 to 5 chunks. And so the songs are going to be pre-mixed, but then like that would enable me to sort of have like an improvisation section. And that's something that I could do with the machine, is like, the Ableton stems stop, and then I could start playing back, like, or actually just live loop using the machine, and then have that maybe blend into like the next section or something. Like, there's a lot of flexibility with that approach. I just haven't spent the time with it yet, but I think going forward, it would make a lot of sense to have more like room for improvisation and
because
stuff.
This is
like,
what I if a set is pre-programmed, like that's what you get, right? But like if you're kind of looking on the dance floor, especially, like
that's kind of the big benefit that DJs have, is that they can sort of vibe off the crowd, and if they're like, oh,
Exactly.
maybe I should
We read the
go
crowd
faster or
and see,
slower.
okay, now we're dancing, and now I should kind of,
Exactly.
because this is exactly what was in my head all the time. Because you're stuck. You're kind of okay. Now we're dancing, and the next one is
Yeah,
a
you
slow
have
number,
to go
and
through it.
exactly, and you have to do it. I mean, it makes sense, and it's kind of easy because you basically, I mean, easy. Don't get me wrong, it's not, but yeah, so it kind of makes you stuck to the metronome you got, and you cannot speed up things, or this is what I always liked in a band. You just look around and okay, and we do another chorus, and the people are are really in it, and stuff. So you're a little bit hindered by that.
You hope that the time that you spent like sort of arranging it is interesting enough for people to keep engaging with. But I guess I've had a couple live instances where I have thought like, oh, it would actually be really cool to take this in a different direction, but don't have that option at the moment. But that's kind of what I'm thinking of, like, going forward to address that exact issue, is to try to even like the one thing I was thinking of doing, and like having a massive flow chart, right? Say like, okay, I have chunk A and chunk B, and then chunk C and D. And depending on the set, maybe I can go from A to D or B to C or something, and then like have different transitions between those. So it's still kind of pre-programmed, but I'm able to steer the set in different directions.
Exactly. That's also what because just that where I'm coming from. I was a singer of a metal band once, and we didn't had a drummer for a while, and also not a bass player. So we had only two guitar guys and me as a singer. And so we were coming, it was 20 years ago. Oh man, I'm old. 20 years ago.
Vintage,
and
you're vintage.
I'm vintage. Oh, thank you.
Classic.
No, and the problem was there that, they programmed the drums and the bass. So, and they were so, they had kind of really good metal guitar guys and whatever. But if you would have seen our set once, that's enough. Because the next set will look the same, and the next set will look. Only I, as a singer, could kind of move around because we were so preoccupied with their two guitar solo parts, doing a dual solo thing, and really cool stuff. But there was not much going on, and it was kind of boring for the people to see, kind of also the same layout, the same turnaround. That's why I wanted to know how you do it, because this can be. I don't say that you are doing it badly and not unengaging, not like this. But I'm a burnt child, like we say in German here. That it gets boring when you. Yeah, when you repeat yourself all the time, So I think these A, B, what you just said, A, B, or C, and so to keep it engaging. And also, you already said that you don't play exactly the same synthesizer, and it's not exactly the same note, and there's variation in it. And with MIDI, you can also, you get a MIDI signal to your synth, and then you do the DJ stuff and just put it somewhere else, and then it sounds also different. That's okay. So thank you, but it's very interesting how you do it, because you're the first one who does it like that. I talk to, because usually people try to cut it in songs, and then
or do like live looping and stuff like that.
Yeah, and exactly, yeah. Or when we can switch a little bit around, and like you said, the DJs will read the crowd usually, and then they give them what the crowd wants, and then sometimes, of course, you also have to take a break, and I don't know. Anyway, yeah. We're already over an hour, but that's fine with me. I mean, we can go on if you're still up for it. You don't have to answer this question, but I kind of already got the answer. So as you are not living from the music, so you have other incomes, and you're doing fine. I mean, in this day and time, at the moment, you're doing okay.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate in that regard. Yeah, because like my current day job, I just work at a music store, like a musical instrument retailer. Yeah, so at the very least, I'm
You're in
closely aligned with
heaven.
my interests. But
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, and like that, I definitely get firsthand exposure to a lot of all the new toys and stuff, and I have the ability to rent them and stuff like that. And for example, all that stuff that I used in the most recent video, I was able to just rent from work and kind of piece it all together. And I definitely have the benefit of having guys that are very knowledgeable in that stuff to bounce ideas off of and stuff. So, but yeah, the COVID thing has been an interesting experience in that regard because like we've been open the entire time. Like for a while, like we were close to the public. There was like we were just doing curbside pickups and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
People would call in, I want to buy this, prepay for it, whatever, come in. We would just bring it out to the parking lot, and like all these safety measures were in place and stuff, but still open the full time. And I guess we're kind of in an interesting industry niche in that regard because all of a sudden everyone has all this downtime and they're like, I'm going to pick up a new instrument. I'm going to, or even like just like
I'm
the
going to
recording.
play the ukulele.
Yeah. Digital pianos right now. Good luck getting one anywhere.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Like, cause pretty much any of the major retailers, ooh, nice. A little chaos.
You know this one, the old one.
Yeah, a little bit. I've never tinkered with it too much, but
it's fun. It's anyway. Sorry, go ahead.
No
but yeah, I just wanted to show off. I have one.
Ooh, I like it. I'm proud of you. Yeah, like it's been interesting because like even like recording stuff, because it's not just musicians that are figuring out how to record their own stuff at home. Or even just learning how to like still, have a band practice just remotely, right? Like people playing instruments like you and I are talking right now over Skype and stuff. But even just like yoga teachers, or fitness instructors trying to figure out how do I get the best quality signal into my computer and then stream it so I can actually take my business online and stuff. So for like a few months, we were like sold out of any like USB microphones, recording interfaces, any of that stuff was like so hard to come by. Headphones are kind of tricky right now. Yeah, pianos, keyboards, like anything that's like an entry-level instrument right now is very difficult to come by. Like you're looking at months of wait time and stuff. And they're, like we're open to the public and stuff now, but I mean, who knows? The regulations change all the time, but by this point, it's like, you know what? We were curbside a few months ago. So worst case scenario, we'll just go back to that and still, continue to be employed, which is very fortunate. On one hand, I was kind of jealous because the rest of my household was like at home, kind of cooped up the whole time.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, I was like, if I had that much downtime, I could get so much done, right? But then, but at the same time, they were also going kind of stir crazy. Whereas I had the benefit of at least like going to work and at least interacting with, my peers and stuff, and just to have some social variety essentially throughout the whole thing.
Exactly.
But so there's flip sides to all of it. But yeah, I definitely feel fortunate in still having, a job throughout the whole thing, because there's definitely a lot of people out there that are much worse off in that regard. But yeah, it's been a time. But going back to that whole like, less reasons to leave the house. Now I don't have to feel like I have to go out and be social. I can just like, I guess we're in lockdown. May as well keep making more tunes.
Yeah, no, and it gets to me slowly because here in Germany, I guess the same. And I lived for 2 years in Montreal, by the way. In Quebec, Québécois.
Oh, nice.
So, merci pour votre collaboration. It's not much what I still remember, but anyway.
Hey, to be fair, we don't really. There's not a lot of like French speaking here in Western Canada.
I know. It's also.
So you probably know way more than me.
Maybe. And anyway, what I wanted to say is, I'm getting a little bit tired of this whole pandemic, of course, too. But I'm also fortunate I can go to work, and I get a little bit depressed. I wanted to say something. Anyway, that's stupid. I was jealous at the others, I just started this new series and I'm like, and I'm going to work and
yeah.
But yeah, when I really think about it, I rather go to work and get out, because now I'm really this is what I wanted to say. I really miss things, I usually was going, to support your local scene. I went to everything, but I kind of find mildly interesting. It's a small town I'm in, not as big as Calgary, that's for sure. And but now I'm kind of even, I would go to whatever, just to have something. And I'm really hoping that once it opens up again, that people will know the benefits of, congregating and coming together and dancing, sweating and whatever. It's kind of, I really miss that. I never thought, I'm a little bit older now. I have a family. I have my daughter is becoming 8 next month. So I have other stuff to do, and my focus shifted a little bit. But now I really miss it. But my hope is that everyone is very hungry once we are coming back. That they will flock to the things. Anyway.
Yeah, hopefully there's still venues to come back to, because we definitely had a couple local ones that they were like community staples, and they've had to shut down just because they couldn't afford to stay open anymore, which really sucks. But hopefully they'll just kind of like a phoenix rising from the ashes.
Exactly, I hope so. I hope so too. I really hope so, because this would be really. This would be suck. I mean, you're doing, like we talked about, you're doing well on the internet, and that's fine, to kind of hone your skills there and stuff. But life is life, I mean, in front of an audience, and it's just not the same. I mean, this is what drives me. I'm a in German we say Rampensau. I'm a it translates to stage pick, somebody who really wants to present themselves, wants to be big. And, I did some acting and some stunt shows and stuff. So this is really what I love to do, to perform.
Yeah, to be an entertainer, performer, exactly.
Exactly. And this, I mean, even you mentioned live streams and stuff. Yes, it's cool, and it's cool that we can do it. It's also cool that we can talk, that we... It's all great, but it's not. It's just a surrogate, or it's a little replacement for the real thing. It would be much cooler to have a real interview and maybe seeing you on stage, and then afterwards, and you did anyway. So I'm actually through with my most of my question. But if you still want to go, I have a question, or not just for the audience who. Listens to this as a podcast. You're wearing a Rick and Morty T-shirt. That's really cool, because I could have worn I have a Mr. Meeseeks hoodie.
Nice.
Yeah, I really like this one, and it's so not me. It's bluish, baby bluish and stuff. And anyway, I really like this show as well. It's really fun because it's so over the top stuff. So I guess we kind of have the same humor.
Yeah. Even though how some of the episodes at the very end, they end on such a dark note, you're like, what did I just watch?
Yeah, we have some really tough stuff in it. Yeah, some really, I mean, deep tough stuff sometimes. But it's good, I mean, I like it that we are we're kind of like music, We're not bound by anything. We're just going wherever we want to go, I guess, Family Guy, or what was this other show, The Simpsons first, kind of started to branch out a little bit and asking tougher questions. And this is what now the pinnacle, how you say, the summit of crazy stuff, because there is no limit at all, with all the parallel universes and stuff. Everything can happen, everything goes, but still it's a lot of fun, because sometimes I don't like it if it's so that everything goes. It means you cannot take everything seriously when the stakes are not there, because, okay, now he dies and now comes back from that. But we really do some dark stuff, Anyway, I just wanted to mention it because people on the podcast will not see it. One other thing is, I guess this was on purpose, that you don't have a singer in your project. That it just be you and doing the music?
Yeah.
Or was it intentional, or didn't find anyone who wanted to sing?
I mean, the thing is, I do have some phenomenal vocalist friends, but it was just kind of like going back to the whole do-it-yourself sort of aspect, where I'm like, yeah, like I'd love to collaborate with them, and with some I have, but ultimately it's in the spirit of just me doing everything on my own. Like eventually I'll probably get back into vocals. Like I've had some ideas for doing like some vocal things. I just, for whatever reason, I just haven't felt inspired to write lyrics in the last probably 4 or 5 years. Because like in the old metal project, like I was also like I was the lead guitarist and the vocalist as well, like primarily doing like the growly rah 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 kind of stuff.
Okay.
And occasionally
True
like the
death
grunting.
metal stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, the growlies.
Mm.
But yeah, with this project, unfortunately, the electronic stuff, there's less room for the growlies. And like I do a bit of singing, but I haven't. I'm not nearly as confident in that realm as I am as like an instrumentalist. I guess granted, I do have access. Like the advantage of using a computer is yay autotune. Not to an extreme amount, but at the same time with electronic music, it's all hyper processed anyway, so who cares? But I do want to get back into it at some point. And it would be cool to start introducing more vocals to my stuff. That isn't in the plans, but in the meantime, it just kind of went from the idea that most of the electronic music I listen to is pretty much just instrumental. It's just, kind of dance music stuff with like you listen more to the sounds and the melodies of the instruments than you do like worrying about like vocal lines and such. So I kind of just went at it from there. And it also, I guess, added a bit of a challenge as far as like how do I make just instrumental stuff interesting? Because I figure if I can make that work, then I don't have to struggle as hard with other things. But I think that's kind of where it stems from. But really, it's just the fact that words haven't come to me in a few years, really. Whereas I used to write lyrics all the time, but for whatever reason, they haven't as of late. But I'm sure I'll get like some download from a muse at some point, and then eventually I'll like jot some stuff down. And like I do have a lot of old just lines that I've written, like little notes and stuff throughout the years. And occasionally, like how I used to write stuff back in the day was I would go through the list of them and see which ones would thematically fit together and just kind of like arrange them and make them work. But just haven't spent the time. But yeah, eventually it'd be cool.
And I can just say to the listeners out there, your music is not it's not overstuffed, but it's also not missing the vocals. I have to say, because sometimes I listen to a lot of music, obviously, and you, so do you. But you can hear when some people just put in too much space so that there couldn't be a vocalist. When there is no space because they filled everything. I mean, maybe a really good vocalist could also still fit in something, and you always can put in more. But sometimes it's too full. You also need, if you write for a vocalist in mind, you kind of leave some space where the vocals can be and can shine. When we are not competing with the other stuff in it. So and I think with your music, it's kind of. It's not there, and it wasn't intended to be. So it's not missing, but you're not overdoing it as well. I mean, there still could be added vocals, but they don't miss. And I said this a couple of times already, so I'm kind of repeating myself. What I really like, if music is not overstuffed, you give it air to breathe, and this means, for me, when I listen to it, I'm a vocalist too. I can hear things in it that are not there. You see what I mean? Because I'm kind of looking for, there could be a harmony or a melody, and my brain puts it in, and so I hear more than you did, because you let it breathe. You gave it empty spaces to do its own thing, to kind of get its own spin in it. So I really like that. So I always get I tell people the comparison of when you have just your acoustic guitar on a campfire, and you play a song and just sing to it, and I still can hear the orchestra in the background, even if it's not there, because it's just there's empty spaces my brain can fill, and so anyway, kudos to you. like I said, I'm a little fanboy. So
Thanks, man.
very, very well done.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks so much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So yeah, I'm done. Do you wanna share some last thoughts with the world? Anything? Maybe what can we expect from you? But you already said like you're working on it and you take usually 5 weeks. Anyway, what is kind of the
Like the next steps, I guess.
yeah, what's your next steps? I mean, granted, we are in difficult times right now, but so what can we expect from Alyag? Say it again, please.
Alyag.
Alyag. Sorry, I don't
Yeah.
know. This doesn't roll off the tongue so easily. Alyag.
I know and it's a stupid name too. Like it doesn't mean anything. Like I came up with it when I was like I think 6 years old. I was like, I guess as an aside, I'm from Soviet Russia. Well,
I was just
Soviet
about to
Union,
ask you because Alex Popravko,
Yeah.
да, очень хорошо. Ich sound a bit Russian. Я не понимаю.
Very nice.
I learned Russian, you know. I grew up in East Germany, so behind the Iron Curtain. So,
Oh yeah.
Mother Russia was my friend.
Officially,
Officially, of course.
Yeah.
I love them.
Yes, the motherland. Yeah, like I was born in Vladivostok, and then we came to Canada when I was 9. But yeah, so when I was little, like I had like this ripped, pirated copy of Warcraft 2. And there's a thing where you would tell the elven archers to like you'd command them to go somewhere and they'd be like, oh yeah, like as a confirmation thing, they'd be like, I serve the Alliance or whatever, but it was like translated, so Služu Aliansu. But I misheard it and I thought they said I serve Alyag, Služu Alyagu. So I was like, oh well, you serve Alyag, I am Alyag. So like ever since then, like whenever I'd have like a video game character or like, whenever I'd be playing Lego with my friends and I'd have like my little cameo, he was always named Alyag. So it's just something that's stuck throughout the years and it's really dumb, but I know
But it's unique.
I'm like,
but it's unique at the same time. I had a hard time to find it because I couldn't read it so well. I didn't know if a L was an I or something.
Oh, yeah.
The thing I couldn't really
especially
read it.
the logo that I made. That's kind of a thing. You're like, I don't know what that letter is, but
Exactly. I couldn't find because I wanted to look you up a little bit more, but I couldn't even write your name. I mean your artist name. So I was like,
good to know.
I really had struggle. But I finally found you, with some. I mean, I got you on Instagram, and when I kind of got it, what it means, and looked you up a little bit more. Anyway, thank you. So we have even an explanation for Alyag, and you're from Mother Russia.
At some point, I should probably go and actually change that in the logo. Like I just revised the G a couple months ago, but I should probably tweak the L so it looks more like an L.
Yeah, but, I was confused what it is, But I mean, it's not such a long name that you cannot try out different things. But yeah, going back to marketing, you're absolutely right. People who might not be as persistent as I was might be just like, let's leave it,
But at the same time, if they've actually put in that much effort, maybe they're more likely to become a more like a long-term, I guess, fan. So it's like a filter, right?
Exactly. It's you have to decide how you want to see it. It's a half full or half empty. Your glass. I mean,
say half full and the other half was delicious. But,
it has been delicious because it's already in you, all right?
Yeah. But I guess next steps wise, I'm trying to figure out how to just make more recurring content just so I have stuff on a weekly basis and, be it for people that are exclusively on like my mailing list or if it's like just people that follow me on the socials. I'm just trying to circulate some ideas around and I was thinking of doing like weekly live streams and things just of like either writing sessions or just like hanging out and answering questions or whatever. But my computer thus far has really struggled with that. So I might have to just film a bunch of like, here's what I'm working on this week. And then just like those kind of videos and just put them out. I guess. So after we're done chatting, cause Mondays are usually my day off and that's like my get things done kind of day. So like last week I came up with an idea for a new song, like just like a guitar riff I started figuring out and like mapped it out in MIDI and stuff. So I'm going to be working on starting a new track basically. And thus far, the way that it sounds, it's kind of like a cross between Children of Bodom and Pendulum. So that's kind of cool.
Cool.
It's
I
kind of like
definitely
a drum,
want to
like
hear it. I definitely want to hear
melodic metal drum and bass
Mm.
kind of thing. So I'll be doing that, and then just trying to figure this thing out, like learn because it's definitely got a bit of a learning curve to it, and see what I can do as far as incorporating that into live sets. And then maybe like I do want to start filming more of my tracks, like not quite as ambitious as I did with Passive Aggressive Predator, but I do want to get Becca's help again, like just using the old phone on the gimbal thing. Just probably here because we got a pretty small space, and this probably makes the most sense to use it as like a set, but actually just like set up my instruments and just do like playthrough videos of all the tracks and just kind of maybe release those on a bi-weekly basis or something, just so people that fall into my atmosphere, I guess, can kind of get familiarized with the tunes, and videos tend to be more engaging anyway. Because there are a few tracks that I have that actually where I swap between like acoustic and electric guitars as well,
cool.
plus everything else that's going on. So might start putting some of those out in the near future. But in the meantime, I'm probably going to film a couple instances of me working on the tune today and put them up on the socials, and just kind of go from there. But recurring content and probably more like live set stuff, and then obviously more music. Like I'm kind of undecided whether I want to keep doing like single releases or if I want to actually try to like save a few up and release like an EP or an album in the next little bit, because I do have like an EP and an album out along with a bunch of other singles. But
you could do both. I mean, you could kind of first single, and then you have an EP or an album, or even EP, and then single, EP, and then you make an album again, always adding a bonus track or something so that it's really there. But as long as you're doing digital, I mean, I'm just living on Spotify. I check out one song, maybe two or maybe three, and then I move on to the next one, so it's not the time anymore that I get an album and listen to it attentively all the time through. I'm really sorry, but I'm being just honest here. So I'm just one or two songs, and then I move on, because like I told you earlier,
I like happy medium there.
Exactly, yeah. And so do that. From the little things I know, this should be the best thing, because then you kind of basically always stick your head up again, and the fans will see it. The guys who follow you will get it in their release radar, and things will happen from them, from there. So that seems like the best option.
And, totally. Yeah. And even like with every like release, I try to make a bunch of like kind of background content, like making of, or like studio diaries, or like a bunch of other stuff, which more recently I've just kind of been essentially incentivizing people that like want to follow me a little bit closer to actually like sign up for like the mailing list, because then that way they get to see all that stuff. They're like, they kind of have like a separate section.
Clever idea.
Yeah, because then like if someone is really invested in the music, they kind of get like an inside view as to like, here's how this all came together, and like here's kind of like a step into the studio, and everything else is just like, for those that are engaged, it just becomes more interesting and kind of a little more rewarding to kind of follow a little closer, right? So, and that's kind of what I did with even like this past video was I had kind of like a breakdown of the rig, and I went through all the little details and like how the whole thing was put together and whatever, but
And now with this video, people will know more about your background a little bit, because this kind of also makes it easier to kind of, you're knowing what you're talking about. Because sometimes I have a feeling when you follow some guys and then like, okay, but this is not how you do it, or some people are not really that well versed into the stuff they do. Let's put it this way, very nicely. I have one last question. I just remembered or realized. Passive Aggressive Predator. How did you come up with this name? I mean, I know as a tune has to get a name, and there is no lyrics in it, so it's kind of. But why? I mean, it's kind of a strange word combination.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's the overarching theme with pretty much all my titles, is they're all very stupid. but hopefully eye-catching. If somebody sees it in a playlist, they kind of like hopefully drives them to investigate further. But where they all come from, like for one, like the uniqueness kind of makes them a little bit easier to search, or a little more eye-catching than just like, oh, this is a song about home, or I love you, or whatever. But the other thing is, because it's instrumental electronic music, anything goes. It doesn't matter what it's called, right? But I actually have a list on my phone of just like a bunch of really stupid titles that usually come up from like wine-fueled conversations with like friends. And that's pretty much where they all came from, which is why if you look down the whole list of my stuff, it's Passive Aggressive Predator, Argyle Twinkle Toes, Squat Lobster, like just things that make like Poop Ball Ferocity Push, they make no sense. But where Passive Aggressive Predator came from was
Optimistic, Hectoplasm. Oh, Hectoplasm, I think, was the one I kind of found you with, and Poltergeist Face.
Poltergeist Face Palm.
Your beloved scapegoat.
Yeah.
Something about cheese dreams. Okay. It's really
something about cheese dreams came from Becca. She was talking about how like if you eat a bunch of cheese before bed, you usually end up having really weird dreams.
Okay.
But it was a it's a good title, but Passive Aggressive Predator. Basically, we had like a friend and a former roommate who, like, if she saw you wearing something really comfortable and she became envious, it was very obvious in her eyes, because she'd be like she'd be having a conversation with you and she'd be like actively listening, but then she would kind of keep looking.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, you could see the envy, right? And you're like, okay, I know you want, this comfortable thing or whatever. So it's kind of like we started making fun of it and calling it like being a passive aggressive predator kind of thing. But I mean, you could even say like cats are a passive aggressive predator, for example. So it just seemed like a very like, because like on one hand it sounds kind of harsh, but on the other it's sort of benign. It's passive aggressive. It's like a bit of both or whatever. So it's like a harmless evil.
No, it's
sort of thing.
I like the idea. It's intriguing. It's like even you know yourself. We're talking about marketing again. It's people don't know your music and they see just the. Or I can say it from my perspective as a radio DJ, the first thing I'm going to see is the artwork of your single. And then I can already, judge, does somebody had put in some effort or just photoshopped something on something. And then I see, of course, the title. So, this title would be intriguing for sure. So you did everything right here. And this is how... you should not forget that, that there is also, you pitch it to people, and the first thing they're going to read is, oh, this is my new song, Poof Puff, the Cheese Dragon, or something. And okay. Yeah. No, thank you very much for your time. It was very very fun to talk with you, and I'm honestly really looking forward to hear more from you. I wanted to say mehr. Mehr is German, and give me more. I'm pretty happy that I found you, because I like your openness to kind of things. This is exactly what my radio show is about. So I'm happy, looking forward to play your stuff. And if you have new stuff, please, you know how to get in touch with me. Just send it to me, and I can put it in my show. Okay, so thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
I wish you all the best.
It's been awesome.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, you're cool. An awesome guest. I mean, you did this. You're. I mean, I think we're quite like-minded, so it's easy to talk with you.
No, totally.
Thank you.